And above all, Mr. Speaker, we are proud of the 6 who perished and of Congresswoman Giffords, all of whom were simply doing their duty as good Americans, they as active citizens, and she as their worthy representative. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
We all come together in the aftermath of the overwhelming tragedy at Tucson to remember all of the victims and also to fervently hope, still in disbelief. Our colleague Gabby Giffords epitomizes what a public servant should be: fully dedicated, principled, caring, and reaching out to all constituents and to all our colleagues. Time will tell with clarity exactly what are the appropriate lessons for all of us to learn from the Tucson tragedy. In the meanwhile, our focus is indeed very personal. In the holiday card that Gabby sent to me, she wrote her best wishes for a joyful new year and continued writing that we will have our work cut out for us. The new year is now far, far less joyful. So our hope and the prayer we are sending with love to Gabby and to Mark is that Gabby will be able to join us as we take on the work cut out for us, to which, Gabby, you have devoted your whole self so fully. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman is recognized.
I thank the Speaker. Let me just say how nice it is to have you presiding, another Arizona controlling time on that side, and so many in the delegation here today. We are a close delegation. Yield to such time as he may consume to the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Gosar.
Mr. Speaker, I stand here today with a heavy heart as I give my prayers to Representative Giffords and her family, as well as my condolences to the other victims of the rampage in Tucson. I speak not just for myself and for my family, but for the citizens of my district in Arizona and so many others who are saddened and outraged by this senseless act. Gabby is more than Arizona's 3rd female congresswoman. She is first and foremost an American who devoted much of her life to public service. There are risks with public service. We cannot deny that. But Gabby has powerful beliefs, and she came to D.C. to represent the people of her district, and everyone knows she is tireless. Gabby has the grit of a fighter and the tenacity of a woman on a mission. It is that heart and that grit and that tenacity that I pray will continue to serve her well and speed her recovery. I hope the day is coming soon that I get to greet Gabby with open arms and welcome her back to the floor of this House. There is so much that we have yet to do together for Arizona, for this country. I look forward to working with Gabby on the issues of our day and hearing her spirited voice. Let me add further, the acts of a criminal will not stop us from meeting our people. We will not be deterred. We will not be intimidated, and we will not abandon the people of Arizona because of the murderous acts of a deranged killer. Gabby read the First Amendment on the floor of the House just days before she was shot. That amendment provides that the people shall have the right to petition their government and gives the people of this nation a voice to speak on the issues important to them. Gabby did not just read the First Amendment, she lived it. She was living it on the very day someone tried to kill her. Let us to continue to pray for the recovery of the wounded. Let us pray for the full recovery of Gabby. Let us pray for the families who lost a loved one. Let us pray for the mothers and fathers who lost a child. and let us pray that God will continue to guide us in everything we do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back my balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor and offer prayers for my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, her staff, and all the victims of the tragic and senseless shooting in Tucson. She is a brilliant and caring public servant. She loves this country as all members of Congress do. At times like these, words are always inadequate to express the full extent of our grief. What we can do is pray, reflect, and seek to gain some meaningful perspective from this time of great sorrow. Mr. Speaker, this terrible act, whatever the cause, does violence to the democratic principles our country was founded on. As I pray for the victims of this terrible event, I also pray that our country can move forward from this tragedy with that love and respect that Gabrielle Giffords has for human dignity. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Speaker, I yield such time as you may consume to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tragedy is always accompanied by so many thoughts and emotions, and the irrational violence visited upon our nation last Saturday in Tucson brought a new wave. Shock at learning the news of the carnage. Incredulity at even the possibility of such a senseless act. Sadness for those injured or killed and for their families. Confusion by this inexplicable violence. Anger at the lunatic responsible for this. Inadequacy to comprehend the mind that conceives such an act. Respect for those expert hands and minds working to heal the casualties. Honor for those who sacrificed and helped in a moment of real crisis. Hope for a full recovery for Congressman Gabrielle Giffords and all battling their injuries. Recognition that life and liberty are precious and fleeting. Love of our country and the blessing of liberty that we all enjoy. Steadfast in our commitment to preserving our great nation. Humbled by our mutual responsibility as citizens charged with that preservation. Reverence for our Lord, the only one who knows the answer to the why. And strength from His grace and His love and His mercy. And so we resolve to use this unspeakable and senseless tragedy as an opportunity to better ourselves as a people, to recommit ourselves to the tireless preservation of our republic, and to reaffirm those fundamental principles of liberty and American representative government. May God place His healing hand on all affected by this heinous event, and may God bless the United States of America.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I will yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Texas.
The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the resolution before us today and think it is fitting and proper that we take this opportunity to pause and remember those who lost their lives and were wounded in the tragedy that occurred last Saturday in Tucson, Arizona. It is really hard to comprehend how such senseless acts of violence can happen. And yet, while we may not be able to fathom why this tragedy occurred, the harsh reality is that 6 innocent people were killed, including a 9-year-old child, and another 14 individuals were wounded, including our own friend and colleague, Representative Gabrielle Giffords. As we speak, she remains in critical condition in the intensive care unit at the University Medical Center in Tucson, fighting for her life. Those of us who know Gabby know that she is a real fighter, and that gives us optimism that the final outcome will be a good one and that she will be returning to this institution that she loved and still fight for what she believes in. A number of my colleagues have spoken about the many ways in which Representative Giffords has touched their lives here in Congress, and I would like to echo some of those sentiments. As the ranking member of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, I have seen firsthand the way her passion, commitment, and competence have been used to voice her help for our nation and move forward in a positive way. She's been very active as a member of the committee, sponsoring and co-sponsoring numerous pieces of legislation relating to research, innovation, renewable energy, space exploration, math and science education. They have included the Solar Technology Roadmap Act, the Science Parks Research and Innovative Technologies Act, the NASA Authorization Act of 2010, and America Competes, as many other important pieces. She's been tireless in carrying out her oversight responsibilities. As chairman of the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee in the 111th Congress, she conducted numerous hearings on a wide range of issues related to NASA, civil and commercial space activities, international cooperation in space, civil engineering and aviation, and Earth observations, among others. Her willingness to work hard to get the facts and exercise tough love on the agency she oversees has earned her the respect of members on both sides of the aisle. In addition, while she's not afraid to express her views directly, she always has done so with civility and grace. So, Mr. Speaker, Congresswoman Giffords, the one that I know and respect, we hope to see her return soon. It is still hard for me to comprehend that such evil could befall her and the other victims of last Saturday. I know I speak for all members in saying that our thoughts and prayers are with each of them and their families. We look forward to the day when we can welcome Ms. Giffords back to the House floor and join together with her to do the nation's business. I thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield such time as he may consume to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Sessions.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join with my colleagues today with respect to the delegation from Arizona who suffers and yet today comes to the floor of the House of Representatives to do their duty. To the colleagues of Ms. Giffords who today join in support, not only in prayerful support, but as we stand together, we speak clearly to say that the support for Congresswoman Giffords and all the victims of this tragic shooting and their families need to be remembered, and we offer full support. I was deeply shocked and saddened by these heartbreaking events, and I join my colleagues, and I know all of America looked on TV on Saturday as we all condemned, not only in our own hearts, but also as our families spoke around the tables about what had happened. We condemn this senseless act of violence. Congresswoman Giffords is a dedicated public service and has served the people of Arizona for over 10 years. She was elected to the House of Representatives in 2006. She's known as a steadfast leader in Congress for her constituents. I would see her often on the airplane as we would travel back every weekend. She is known by each of us as a kind and wonderful person who serves with honor and who is very deeply genuine and a warm person with friends on both sides of the aisle. All members of this body understand the high honor it is to serve our constituents every single day. And I would like to join my colleagues in standing together today to guarantee that the inhumane acts of this last Saturday will not deter us from our duty. This heartbreaking event has left Americans astonished and speechless. Those participating as members of Congress today should stand up and say that we will stand behind Gabriella and look forward to her safe return to be with her colleagues. We offer a prayer for her support. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Illinois.
Gentlelady from Illinois is recognized.
I'm very grateful to join my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to mourn the tragic loss of 6 lives and the many who were injured, who wanted nothing more than to participate in the simple but precious opportunity to meet directly with their Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. There will be time to reflect on potential remedies that could prevent or diminish the threat that has so personally touched us all. But today I simply want to send my love to Gabby and to Mark and the rest of their family. We have all had the opportunity to focus on you, Gabby, the brilliant, effective, warm, courageous person and leader that you are. You brought us together to focus on just how meaningful your friendship is to us, to me. I also want to take this opportunity to thank my dedicated staff here in Washington and at home in the district, and all the staff that work with us. Thank you for your daily efforts and sacrifices, the long hours, and the commitment to your constituents, our constituents. The tragedy of this event and the loss of Gabe Zimmerman and the wounded staff has brought home just how important you are to all of us and to everything that we do here. Let us take this sad moment to seek peace and love, to honor those who were killed, and fervently pray for those who were injured, including our beloved colleague Gabrielle Giffords, and look forward to the day when she will return to us in full health. I yield back.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield such time as he may consume to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Carter.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come over here today because about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, on a plane coming back from Washington, D.C., flying to Dallas, where I changed planes, and also Gabrielle Giffords changed planes, was my first opportunity to interact with this young lady. I watched her work and watched her visit with the fellow travelers on the plane. She spied a couple of her constituents and talked with them. She visited with me, and then as we shared a cart to our changing gates, I was just touched by what a really, really nice person she was. You know, we interact in this building and we have our debates and so forth, but I got a chance to just ride and talk about family and talk about life with a charming, intelligent, and quite honestly, captivating young lady. And that's why I came down here today, because you don't cross paths with individuals like that very often. And when you do, it's a blessing that comes into your life. And then when I turned on the television and discovered that this blessing had been attacked by this vicious, vicious attack that took place in Arizona. And not only was this sweet life placed at risk, but a 9-year-old child was killed. Senselessly, others were murdered. Others were wounded on the streets of Tucson, in the United States of America, at a congressional event. And it makes you stop and pause and think. We have to get back together and work on these issues. We have to get civility into the world. And I am concerned about the violence. Violence has entered our house and injured one of our own and killed one of our own. I hope justice is swift, and I hope justice is severe. But as we go forward, we need to work together to secure not only this House, but to secure this nation. I yield back.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Maryland.
The gentlelady from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor and prayer for our friend and colleague, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, a delightful personality, a dedicated legislator, and a powerful advocate for her constituents. Sitting next to her on the Science and Technology Committee, you only had to be there to know and feel her passion for NASA, solar technology, innovation, and research. It has rubbed off. As we pause to reflect on the terrible tragedy that took place in Tucson, we know that Congresswoman Giffords was simply doing what she does so well, meeting with the constituents of Arizona's 8th Congressional District and hearing their different points of view. This is a sentiment that's reflected in Congresswoman Giffords' own words when she said, "My position is to listen to my constituents, then ultimately make sound, rational decisions that are going to be beneficial for the 8th Congressional District. That's my job." Mr. Speaker, I join the nation in expressing my sorrow for the senseless and tragic loss of life, Christina Taylor Greene, Dorothy Morris, U.S. District Court Judge John Roll, Phyllis Schneck, Dorwin Stoddard, and Gabriel Zimmerman, and to all those who were injured, including our friend and colleague, Gabrielle Giffords, and her staff. We'll keep you and your families in our hearts, thoughts, and prayers. And we're deeply grateful to the heroes, sung and unsung, who showed great courage and sacrifice and continue to do so in caring for their friends, family, and community. To Gabby, to Mark Kelly, her husband, her staff, we pray that your burdens are lifted and that the dark days become light. May God bless you and strengthen you. May God bless this Congress, and may God bless America.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Speaker, I yield such time as it may consume to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Walden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of the people of Oregon's 2nd District to offer my deepest sympathies to the families of the victims of Saturday's senseless shooting in Tucson. Americans see each of us taking this personally because Congresswoman Giffords and her staff were doing what each of us does in our own way. We go home, we reach out to listen to people who agree and disagree, and we practice the art of democracy. It is a practice so fundamental to our nation that families bring their young children who are interested in public service. Senior judges attend to discuss federal policy. Citizens come to get help with their Medicare, Veterans Affairs benefits. No one comes thinking such a despicable act of violence will occur. Despite deep philosophical differences, sometimes argued vigorously and vociferously in our meetings, Americans share a common belief that violence has no place in democratic discourse. In Romans 12:1, Paul writes, "Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." We stand together across America committed to this calling and in the belief that the great good in America will always overcome the isolated evil. May God's healing hand be on our colleague and those affected and bring comfort to all. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from California.
Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as Gabby's colleagues, we all have had moments with her, so many memories that we recall vividly and fondly. For me, she is a refreshing, frank, and inspiring younger member of the House sisterhood. She is whip smart and a serious and disciplined legislator. She is the kind of person we need so badly in this chamber, doing the people's business without rancor or vitriol. Though the attack occurred in Tucson, it was an attack on all of us, and it strikes very close to home. Just a week ago today, I sat near Gabby at a New Democrat lunch in the Capitol Visitors Center. The group was assessing the recent election, and her contribution to the discussion was personal, impressive, and well-delivered. But 7 days is a long time in politics, and our world here is in upheaval. Beyond the heroic efforts of Tucson's emergency and medical teams, the FBI and the Capitol Police, the alleged gunman must be fairly and swiftly prosecuted. But there is more. The Congress family must take additional prudent steps to protect our staffs and constituents from random violence at our public events or offices. I serve here, as we all do, in loco parentis, and take this very seriously. And finally, we should revisit sensible federal laws to control access to guns and ammunition. At a minimum, I believe we must promptly restore the expired federal ban on extended magazine clips. I personally would urge us also to reenact the 1994 ban on assault weapons, which I was proud to support, and to bar sales of Saturday night specials. Mr. Speaker, we can't roll back last Saturday, but we can and must learn its lessons. I yield back.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Wyoming, Ms. Lemus.
The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this resolution. I rise to add the voice of the people of Wyoming to the chorus of united Americans reaching out in prayer to the victims in Arizona and to the families of those whose lives were stolen from them. On January 6th, Representative Gabrielle Giffords took to the floor of this House and eloquently read to us the First Amendment of our Constitution. She gave her own strong emphasis to the phrase that grants Americans the right to peaceably assemble. 2 days later, she and her constituents had their God-given rights violently taken from them. In the midst of our national grief, the desire to make sense of the senseless is profound. We err if we attempt to rationalize what is wholly irrational and to understand what cannot be understood. The Apostle Paul writes, "Now we see but a poor reflection, as in a mirror." Instead, let us all stand with the gentle lady from Arizona in her time of trial and in defense of the Constitution which she is striving to uphold. Let us stand with our 9-year-old daughters who are fostering a budding interest in our representative democracy. Let us stand with our 76 and 79-year-old mothers and fathers who seek only to forge a relationship with their elected representatives and to impart a wisdom that comes with long life as a citizen of this country. And let us stand with our servant leaders of all ages and parties, and who spend every day in a passionate effort to better a great nation and a beautiful ideal. We do them honor if we continue, not with idle speculation, but with a renewed commitment to exercise the rights of liberty and freedom. We begin the long road to healing by fervently praying for peace in our world, peace in our country, and peace in our hearts. God bless the victims of Saturday's violence and their families. God bless America. And now may the peace of God, which surpasses all human understanding and all human misunderstanding, be with us all. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back, and the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Guam.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the resolution today and to honor the 6 individuals who lost their lives. My friend and my colleague, Gabby Giffords, who is currently fighting for her life, and the 13 other wounded victims of Saturday's tragic shooting in Tucson. Gabby Zimmerman, Federal Judge John Roll, Dorothy Morris, Phyllis Schneck, Dorwin Stoddard, and the innocent 9-year-old Christina Taylor Green, all who passed away on Saturday in such a senseless act of violence that was a direct attack on our democracy. Being the extraordinary public servant she is, Gabby had taken her first opportunity in the 112th Congress to organize an event to learn of her constituents' concerns and their hopes. The victims had all peacefully gathered at a local mall to participate in the democratic process. The basic exercise of democracy was interrupted by a disturbed individual bent on anger at the system. This needless and despicable act of violence has no place in our society and should give us all cause to reflect on the level of political discourse in this country. But while we recognize the tragedy that occurred and pray for the quick recovery of those injured and those who died, let us not overlook the many acts of bravery and heroism of those on Saturday. As we piece together the events of last Saturday, my thoughts and prayers go out to Gabby and the others who have been killed or injured. And let this tragic event serve as a reminder of the obligation that we have as elected representatives of the people to be responsible in our leadership and be careful of the words that we choose. I will keep the victims and their families in my thoughts and prayers, and I know that all of my colleagues will do so as well. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back, and the leader is recognized.
Thank the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.Res. 32.
Without objection.
And Mr. Speaker, it's now my honor to yield to the gentlewoman from Florida for 2 minutes.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank our leader for the time. Just a few days ago, as all of us know, one of our own, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, was gravely injured as a result of a terrible act of an unbalanced individual. Americans were profoundly shocked and saddened and continue to be by this deplorable act of violence, which resulted in the unjust deaths of 6 innocent individuals and a struggle to survive for others, including our own Gabby. For those who lost their lives, we know that the list is lamentably long. The Honorable John Roll, a federal judge who went by just to say hi to his friend Gabby, and Christina Taylor Green, a 9-year-old girl who had just been chosen to serve in her school's student council and who was taken to Gabby's Congress on Your Corner event by a family friend who wanted to get her interested in public affairs. And Gabe Zimmerman, a member of Gabby's loyal staff who had an enormous heart and was recently engaged to be married. It is difficult to make sense of this tragedy, but all Americans stand with Gabby, with her family, and the families of all the victims throughout this painful time. Many of us count Gabby not just as a colleague, but as a friend. I had the privilege of getting to know Gabby as a member of our Foreign Affairs Committee. She's always demonstrated a strong commitment to serving her constituents, the men and women of our armed forces and our nation. And that is exactly what we must do. We must not waver in our duties to serve those whom we are proudly and yet humbly asked to serve. Our republic was founded on the premise that the people have the right and the duty to petition their representatives and to express their views. And Gabby truly embodies that principle. She has always been accessible. She has always been eager to listen to her constituents. Representatives like Gabby are what have made America an example of freedom and democracy the world over. It is truly reprehensible to think that these noble intentions were exploited to carry out such a terrible tragedy. To quote Dr. Martin Luther King, we must disagree without becoming violently disagreeable. The thoughts and prayers of the residents of Florida's 18th Congressional District are with Gabby's family and with the families of all those affected by this senseless tragedy. I thank the Speaker and I thank our leader for the time.
And the gentlelady yields back, and the gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes. Gentlelady from California.
Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the victims of the Tucson shooting, including our colleague and friend, Gabby Giffords. I have seen Gabby's commitment and dedication to her constituents firsthand. I've had the pleasure to work with her as we promoted efforts to restore our nation's competitiveness and specifically to help create clean energy jobs. Gabby is smart, courageous, disciplined, and effective. And as we have all seen over the last few days, her strength is unwavering. Last Saturday, Gabby organized an event to talk to her constituents about their priorities, about their concerns and their hopes. It is heartbreaking and a tragedy that 6 innocent people lost their lives and an additional 13 have been critically wounded, all while trying to participate in and strengthen our democracy. We are all now reflecting on what brought our country to this point and how to move forward. As everyone in this chamber can attest, being a representative is more than a job title. It is what we do and it is who we are. We meet with our constituents, we listen to them, we advocate for their best interests. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to take a moment to honor the other victims of this horrific tragedy. 9-year-old beautiful Christina Taylor Green, recently elected to the Student Council. Gabe Zimmerman, a dedicated staffer who was just on the cusp of his own life, recently engaged. Judge John Rowe, highly respected jurist who just came by to thank Gabby for her support of the judiciary. Phyllis Schnick, who was a tireless volunteer at her local church. Darwin Stoddard, who shielded his dear wife. And Dorothy Morris, who was married to her husband a long time, who was there, but who survived. My thoughts and prayers remain with Gabby and with each victim and their families. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Guthrie, for 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to offer my thoughts and prayers for Gabby, our colleague. Like all of us here, any interaction I ever had with her was always pleasant and memorable, and I look forward to her return and pray for her return, praying for her staff, and praying for the other victims. And I just want to hold up one victim this morning. I didn't know Darwin Stoddard, but through a kind of a close network of friends, I've had the opportunity to learn a little bit about Darwin Stoddard. And he's the one that shielded his wife with his own body, saving her life but losing his own. And he and his wife were having breakfast and decided they wanted to go to the Congress on the corner to give Gabby encouragement for the new year and the new in Congress, to encourage her. He loved the Bible, he loved the Scriptures in its simplest and purest form, and just wanted to internalize them and live them, which is evidence in his life. He was very involved in church work. He ran the benevolence program, which lived up to Christ's challenge to feed the hungry and clothe the poor. And we know he internalized the Scripture because of his last act, And I don't know this, but I think I can say without fear of contradiction, there were many times he was probably sitting in church waiting for the minister delivering a sermon on marriage. And I'm sure the text was Ephesians 5:25, when it said, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." What love he had for his wife and what faith he had in God. Throughout his life, he aspired to do good. Through his life, let us all inspire to do our best. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, today we are one and we are resolute. We are one because we understand that there really is but one race, and that is the human race. We are one because, as Dr. King put it, all of humanity was created by one common creator to live in harmony, from a base black to a treble white. We are one, and we are resolute. We are resolute in our belief that one day our friend, our sister, will return to the floor of this Congress, to this hall, and she will stand at this podium, and she will be welcomed by her colleagues as she returns and takes her rightful place in the halls of the Congress of the United States of America. We are one and we are resolute because we believe that an innocent baby was taken from us. And that innocent baby, though she is not with us in the physical, she will forever be with us in the spiritual as long as we remember who she was. And never forget that we cannot allow the innocent to be stolen from us without our taking the time to pause and be grateful for the time that we had with the innocent. We are one and we are resolute, but we must also be resolute in a basic premise that Dr. King called to our attention. And that is that we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. We are one, and we are resolute. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Paulson.
The gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in tribute of my friend and colleague, Representative Gabrielle Giffords, one of many victims of a very senseless act of violence this past Saturday. I've had the pleasure of knowing Gabby and her husband, Mark, astronaut Mark Kelly, for several years, even before either of us stepped foot in this chamber. And in my district office, there's a photo of Gabby, myself, and others who were part of an Aspen Institute Rodel Fellowship program, which was created to explore the responsibilities of public leadership, advance thoughtful, civil, bipartisan dialogue, and help America's leaders achieve their full potential. Gabby is so much about all of these ideals. I found myself looking at this photo over the last few days quite often, and I couldn't help but think that all of our communities could use a few more individuals like Gabby, whose bright smile and kind heart have come to define her tenure here in Congress. For many of us here today, the news of the tragedy was gut-wrenching. It's hard to believe that just a few days before this senseless attack, my family and I were out visiting at the Air and Space Museum at Dulles Airport when we heard someone shout out my name. And I turned around, and it was Gabby's husband, Mark, with Gabby and her parents in tow. And we spent the next several minutes sharing a positive outlook about the new Congress that was upcoming, and, as friends often do, recalling some of our good memories, such as when I joined Gabby with 2 of my daughters at one of Mark's space shuttle launches in Florida. Over the past few days, there have been many moving tributes to Gabby, and all of them are true. She leads by example with her fighting spirit, her diligent work ethic, and friendly, constant smile. And it's my hope that we can follow in Gabby's footsteps over the next several weeks, and as hard as it may be, show the same bright smile and kind heart that she has shown all of us. My thoughts and prayers remain with Gabby, her husband Mark, and their family, Gabby's staff, and all of the victims and their families in part of this tragedy. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona.
To the gentleman from Tennessee.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, as some of the future speakers here, are members of the class of 2006, which Representative Giffords was a member of. We had the opportunity to go through the orientation with her, meet with Speaker Pelosi on many occasions, and share many activities. Gabrielle Giffords is a tremendous member of this House, bright, caring, beautiful, and we all pray for her recovery and that she comes back and works with us. I listened to her remarks on television when she talked about words having consequences, and her brother-in-law, who's up in space, saying the same thing. And it's true, words have consequences, and we all need to be more concerned about how we speak about political opponents or people who have different perspectives than we do on political issues. We're all Americans, we're all human beings, and we all have similar goals and similar aspirations. And even though we may differ on philosophy, that doesn't make us communist or socialist or birchers or whatever. We're all trying to make this government work. And one thing that we know about the person who did the shooting, besides the fact that he needed mental health treatment and was obviously crazy, was that he didn't like government. And government's good, and if one thing that we should learn from this is that government can be and is a good force, and it's
a lot about what America is, and people who tear down government are doing a disservice to all of us. And they provide an atmosphere to where people think that anarchy is an answer, and it's never an answer. Or nihilism is a philosophy that ought to be followed, and it isn't. Gabby works as a congressperson to make government work for her people, and that's what she was doing with her program on Saturday. And the staffers who were there were working on weekends, as many staffers do, and they work long hours, and they love government, and they love people, and they try to make a difference. So I think we just need to remember that we're all human beings, we all have similar goals and aspirations, that government can and is good, and it's the representative body of the United States of America. And if you don't like the government, you don't like the country, and I love the country, and so did Gabby. Thank you very much.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. McCall.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank the gentleman. Madam Speaker, we gather here today in the House, in this House and as a nation, to mourn the tragic events in Tucson, Arizona, to honor those who lost their lives and those still fighting for them, to honor the heroic acts on that dark day, and to condemn the perpetrator for this senseless act of violence. The last few days have been surreal. When I first heard the news, I was shocked and disturbed that one of our own had been shot, someone I'm privileged to call a friend and a colleague. And as the Speaker said, when one of us is attacked, all of us are attacked. This experience has been painful to all of us and hits too close to home. Professionally, I was fortunate to have worked with Gabrielle Giffords, or Gabby, as she is affectionately called. We both serve on the Science and Technology and Foreign Affairs committees. She is passionate, bright, and a delight to be around. Gabby is a talented lawmaker who always worked effectively across the aisle to get things done for the American people. I was honored to have been one of those she chose to work with. She always told me Arizona and Texas are sunshine states, and we need to harness that energy. I agreed with her, and together we introduced and passed the Solar Technology Roadmap Act. She often talked about being from border states and that we needed security to protect our way of life. We passed a $600 million appropriation for more resources on the border. As everybody knows, she's a staunch advocate for NASA, and she is married to an astronaut. She passionately defended the space program, and we worked together with many others to save the human space flight program. In fact, the last time I saw Gabby a week ago, we were getting off the elevator over there to vote on the floor here, and we talked about NASA, and she said in her classic way, "Yeah, but we can always do better." That was her spirit. We can always do better. And we often talked about putting together a delegation of witnesses, or of members, to witness the last shuttle flight, the one that her husband Mark is commanding. I hope we will still have that opportunity. So when I received the news that she had been shot, it had a profound and personal impact upon me. For above all, she is my friend. She's a bright ray of sunshine in what is too often a dark world. Coming out of a tough election, she often talked about moderation and toning down the partisan rhetoric to get things done for the American people. I know that it is her sincere hope that as her wounds heal, so too will the wound inflicted upon this nation, and that the political discourse in this country be restored to one of civility. I pray for her and all those affected by this horrible tragedy. I pray that one day she will return to this floor and join her colleagues, and I'm confident that she will. For above all, she is a passionate fighter and an eternal optimist. So keep fighting, Gabby, for we need you and more people like you in this world. May God bless you, and may He hold you in the palm of His hand. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arizona.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New York.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my friend from Arizona for yielding me this time.
Firstly, Madam Speaker, I want to recognize and give thanks to the leadership of the House, in particular Nancy Pelosi, and more so this morning to Speaker John Boehner for this beautiful resolution that we have before us today. I said on Sunday that his remarks were appropriately brief when he said, attack upon one of us is an attack upon all of us. And it could not have been better said in reflection upon what took place to our country on Saturday. Judge John Roll, Gabe Zimmerman, Christina Green, Dorothy Morris, Phyllis Schneck, and Darwin Started all were taken from us too soon by a crazed and depraved individual. I wanted to take a moment to also mention the wonderful staff of Gabby Giffords. I had the opportunity on Saturday afternoon, being in Washington, to stop by her office and immediately was moved by the palpable sense of love and affection that was throughout their room, not only for Gabby, but for all the victims, and particularly their fellow colleagues. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all of our staffs, whom maybe many of us in Congress take for granted, for their tireless work and their efforts to serve the people of our constituency and of our great country, not always reflecting upon sometimes the danger that we can't avoid. Gabby Giffords and I go back even prior to her getting elected. I had the great opportunity to endorse her early in her primary because I was so moved by the moxie and the strength of Gabby Giffords when I visited Arizona. She often will say to me when she's around Mark, you know, Mark always tells me, Joe Crowley, that I'm his second favorite member of Congress and you're the first. She said that, I think, because she knows how I was unabashed about my admiration for her.
Madam Speaker, I'll yield an additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman has an additional 30 seconds.
About my unabashed admiration for her. Thank you. The last conversation I had prior to this incident was last Friday when she asked me to, Joe, could I chair the new Dem task force on energy? And she was trying to convince me somehow that I had to let her do this. And I just said, Gabby, what are you, you're not a freshman member of the House. You don't have to, yeah, you're going to do that. Don't worry about that, you know. But she was always trying to convince, she's a star. We know it. Every member here knows it, Democrat and Republican. This woman has something that many of us wish we had, and that is, it's an inner beauty. And if we could take something away from this event, this tragic event, aside from the issues of rhetoric and besides the issues of gun control and mental illness, which we do not give enough time to in this country, is the beauty of this woman and what she reflects upon this institution. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Gabrielle Giffords is always a bright spot in this rather dull, moody, self-absorbed body called Congress. She's easy to work with, no matter on which side of the aisle we happen to be. We all find ourselves being criticized, but few of us have been able to respond with the grace and the class with which Gabby has. Today we mourn the loss of all those killed during the evil shooting spree in Tucson. I know we're praying for the victims' families that somehow, through their devastating loss and heartbreak, they may still find that peace that passes all understanding. For those who have survived the assault, may they find healing in the shadow of the Almighty. Hearing so much these days about the need for congenial discourse, we might look at Gabby Giffords as a living example of how we go about discerning the roadmap to get to the desired decorum. I'm sure both sides of the aisle wish the other side worked with others as well as Gabby does. She makes people here in Congress smile just by showing up. Her flights to and from Washington, D.C. often had us on the same flight to and from the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport hub. Gabby knows I love chocolate. So when she sees me on her flight, she always lights up and says something like, "Louis, I was hoping you'd be on my flight. I need some chocolate." Gabby always finds something for which she can look forward. Our prayers remain with her. This is no time for assigning blame to anyone but the gunman. This is a time to note the positive influences from those who were harmed. This is a time to note and perpetuate the good that their lives have so that they live on whether their heart beats or not. This is a time to learn from Gabby, who has a heart that both still beats and still inspires. We can learn from her attributes and her ability to smile even at those of us with whom we disagree. As we pray for the opportunity for her smile to regain its vitality so she can go back to spreading her sunshine to all of the places that need it. May God bless Gabby Giffords and all of those who are suffering because of this heinous attack, as only He knows their most specific needs. May God further provide the comfort and peace that only comes from the embrace of His almighty arms. And let me just close by saying, when I see her again, I'm going to have plenty of chocolate just for her. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arizona.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the assistant to the leader, Mr. Clyburn.
Mr. Clyburn is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I thank the gentleman for yielding me the time. Madam Speaker, in the book of Micah, the religion that Gabby practice raises the question, what does the Lord require of thee? And the question is answered in Micah 6:8, to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. I cannot think of anybody who I've ever served with who personified that passage more than Gabby Giffords. In my faith, I practice that which is found in the book of Luke, the 10th chapter, where we get the story of the Good Samaritan. When the question was asked of the lawyer who wanted to know what was required to have life everlasting, in the answer, the master said to him, in addition to other things, love thy neighbor as thyself. Gabby Giffords is our neighbor, not just here in this body, but she is our neighbor on this great planet. Because we learn from that story that being one's neighbor is not dependent upon one's religion, nor is it dependent upon one's ethnicity. Being one's neighbor is dependent upon whether or not we have the capacity to show compassion. Gabby Giffords is our neighbor, and I'm pleased to honor her today. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Lance.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in support of the resolution. We come together to extend our thoughts and prayers to those who were killed and to those who were wounded during the horrific attack in Tucson on Saturday. Of our colleague, Representative Giffords, and the others who were wounded, including those who served the public in the Congresswoman's office. We mourn the loss of Judge Roll, Gabriel Zimmerman, the 9-year-old girl, Christina Taylor Green, and the others who were senselessly killed that terrible morning. While the horrific events in Tucson provide a stark reminder of the fragility of human life, we are also reminded that we meet on the floor of the House of Representatives in what Franklin Roosevelt and more recently George W. Bush have called the warm courage of national unity. We have heard the inspiring stories of those whose selflessness protected the lives of others. Violence has no place in the life of the American nation. This tragedy will strengthen, not weaken, our resolve to serve the true principles of democracy. May God bless those who are fighting for their lives as a result of this attack, and may the souls of those who were lost be received in His loving embrace. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from